fifth grade. Today we are going over History 11.4, continuing our journey through Rome. Now, Rome ended up being a big conqueror in its area, and it did that because it started going in and taking over provinces and areas around it, countries around it, obviously by force. It had a great military impact, and it went in through power and took over. So one of the areas that Rome went to take over was Carthage, and Carthage was a city in Africa. So now they were actually getting out of their area and going into other countries then to rule and take over certain areas. Now, Carthage was close to Rome, and that's why they went ahead and tried to conquer over this area. Now, this began the start of three wars called the Punic Wars. Now, these wars lasted 23 years. These two areas were fighting in three different wars. Now, the first war was when Rome conquered over Sicily, okay, which was our little island right off of Italy. Then, in the second war, there was Hannibal, who was leading that Carthage, and what he tried to do was he had told his dad in the past that he would go ahead and he would conquer over Rome. So what he did is, instead of battling across in ships, which is what Rome had done previously, he went ahead and went around and dropped in through the Alps by travel afoot and tried to conquer over Rome that way. However, it was not successful, and they ended up pushed back out of Rome, and they were not able to take over the Roman Empire at that time. So they did do a good fight, but they still were not successful. Then in the third war, Rome just went ahead and defeated Carthage by actually burning it down. And then after they burned it down, they covered everything with salt so that the crops couldn't grow. And that was, I guess a good thing for them, because that's how they ended up defeating them. But then it kind of was a pointless area for Rome to take over, because now they just destroyed the land, and they were building up Rome bigger and bigger. And so the Roman Empire just didn't even take over in that. They took over the area, but they didn't actually build in that area after that. Okay. Then Rome was expanding its rule, and it was going into other countries, and one of the other areas was Pergamum. Now, they went ahead and took over Pergamum. However, the king there actually asked Rome to come in and take over Pergamum and be under Roman rule, and that was the first province in Asia that was actually ruled by another country. And so they went ahead and took over because Pergamum didn't have an heir to the throne, and so that king just wanted a good ruler over Pergamum at the time, and was friends with Rome, and ended up allowing them to go over and take that area. Rome also conquered over Macedonia, Greece, Syria, Mesopotamia, and Palestine, and also France, which at the time was called Gaul. At that time, Julius Caesar is the one who developed a bigger military presence after he became a consul. And so he was a consul for 1 year, and that's what the consuls were. They were elected for 1 year, and there was two of them, remember? And those consuls ruled over the area, and then only for 1 year. But everyone liked Julius Caesar. So he ended up building a bigger military presence, and he started conquering more areas for Rome. And in that time, he ended up taking over Gaul, which was France. And then people ended up fearing him, and they ended up wanting to, the consuls at the time wanted Julius Caesar to stop what he was doing, and they asked him to return back, to dismantle his army and return back to Rome. But instead, he went ahead and took his army and crossed over the Rubicon River. And what happened there is that was like a sign of disobedience to Rome, and people thought, what are we going to do about this? But instead, people liked him so much, and they also feared his military presence, they just kind of let him go through back to Italy, back into Rome, and he ended up becoming a dictator there in Rome because the Senate ended up fearing him based on what he did. Now, there's a saying called crossed over the Rubicon, and that was basically a sign that once you did something, you couldn't go back on it. It was like something, and people say that sometimes now, but it was like it was irreversible, whatever was done. And so he ended up going in and becoming a dictator. But we know that dictators were really powerful rulers, and they were selfish, and they did everything from themselves. But Julius Caesar wasn't this kind of ruler. He actually was a good ruler. He was there for the people. He tried to help them, and he ended up doing good for his country at the time. And so he was a good type of dictator. And that's a little bit more about Rome and how powerful and strong they were. And they were defeating other areas around them and taking over by military force. That was 11.4, so don't forget to get your notes down for that. And also, I believe you're going to be going ahead and yep, that's it for today. So make sure you read that whole section, you get your notes down, and you're done with Rome 11.4 for today.